It's time to take a ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive with our co-hosts Alan Saunders and Zachary Smith.
Welcome into another episode of Steelers Afternoon Drive. I'm Zachary Smith. That's Alan Saunders. It's a Friday, so we got our boy DB joining the show as well. What's going on, DB?
What's going on, man? Yeah, I'm jacked up. Week 2 of the preseason. Looks like we're gonna get some action between the starters. Looks like Sean McDermott's gonna be playing his guys at least like a quarter and a half. I think is what some of their local beat writers have reported. Looks like Steelers are gonna try to play their starters about 3-4 drives. So should be a really good and interesting game. Kind of a good barometer to see where these two teams are at after that, practice that Allen got to see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I misled people a little bit yesterday. We weren't sure if Alan was going to be here. Alan is here. Alan, how are we feeling?
It's Friday. I feel great. It's Friday, and there was no practice today, so you're not going to get me down today.
Also, your entrance into the room today, maybe not what you were expecting. I had on my phone, I was showing Derrick that the Cincinnati Bengals have decided to wear all orange for their season opener, and I was showing Derrick a picture of Joe Burrow. The thing is, like, I had it so close to my camera, it was literally just showing his ass to the camera when Alan joined, and it had just what an entrance for Alan to get as he joined the StreamYard to record. But actually, somehow that's going to actually relate to a topic that we're going to talk about today, because Alan got a question in his mailbag about uniforms, and we can dive into that a little bit later. But DB, being that it's a Friday, the Steelers and Bills play tomorrow, you kind of set up this topic already. What and who are you looking most forward to seeing in this preseason game?
Yeah, I mean, I think any preview probably has to start with the quarterbacks, right? I mean, first real live action look at Russell Wilson in the black and gold, so I'm excited about that. I kind of wanted your all's feedback on this too when I was kind of going through like my notes and like writing some things down for some content this weekend. Like, what do you guys want to see from Russell Wilson, or what would you be most encouraged to see? I think the number one thing for me, which is kind of boring, but I think it's mobility related. Like, I want to see how he looks moving in and out of the pocket, because, Russ's game is really so predicated around his ability to scramble and those out of structure, second reaction type of plays. To my knowledge, I don't know that we've really gotten a chance to see any of that. I mean, he did basically nothing when I was there in Latrobe, but I know, reading Allen's practice reports and things like that, I know he hasn't thrown like a lot, even in the team sessions, but, I think that's kind of a bigger storyline that maybe we haven't discussed as much now that we're 3 weeks away from the season or whatever. So like, to me, that's probably the number one. It would be great if, he came out and lit the world on fire and they scored a bunch of points, whatever. But I think that's like the singular thing that I'm looking forward to seeing, along with just some minor details on like, how does his chemistry look from the receivers, avoiding negative plays, not taking sacks, all that stuff. But I just want to see how he looks physically more than anything else.
Yeah, I think the big thing that I don't understand about Russell Wilson maybe, or haven't really figured out yet, is you look at this guy and I feel like he's been really decisive. Like, the ball comes out fast. His arm looks great. He still looks like he can move. It doesn't look like stiff or slow or anything like that. How did he take 45 sacks last year? That doesn't add up to me. Like, if you're decisive with your throws and you still move pretty well, you shouldn't be getting sacked that much. So I'm interested to see him in there against a live pass rush and see if it looks any different than the player that I've been seeing at training camp, because I think that's the one part of this that doesn't quite add up for me yet.
Alan, let me answer your question real quick. Very simply, he's short. He's just really short. That's what it is. Like, I think like the big thing with you're talking about like with like him taking a lot of sacks, it's always been the same thing. Like, if you think about like the backside of a lot of concepts where you've got like those backside digs and like stuff working into the quarterback's vision, when against the live rush, which is what we're going to see, for the first time against the Bills, when you start to get that pocket condensed a little bit with those interior rushers getting in your face and everything, it's just hard for him to find throwing lanes to push the ball in the middle of the field. That's why he doesn't do it. So that's why he relies a lot on like kind of that mobility. If the front side of the concept's not there, he'll really like his almost like first reaction is like, okay, I'm just gonna start making things happen as a playmaker. And that's what made him so dangerous, like really throughout the first 10 years of his career or whatever in Seattle. It's just like he was still a very, very good athlete. He was really accurate on the run, of course, the deep ball and all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, like when I was watching stuff with even his Denver film. I mean, there's so many moments where, he just goes 1 to 2 and then the pocket may or may not be fine, but he almost like runs himself into trouble or, instead of actually going through the rest of his progression. So we'll see what that looks like. But yeah, I think like just his height, unfortunately, he just was not blessed to be 6'4" like a lot of the other really elite arms in the NFL.
If I could, what I want to see in Russell Wilson's first action as a Steeler is actually not necessarily Russ himself, more so in other things. I thought, for his in a preseason game, I thought that the offense and Arthur Smith called as good of a game that he could call for an offense in a preseason game, but
especially one that didn't score any points in the first half.
Right. Yeah. But the execution obviously wasn't there, especially in the first half. So, does that change now with Russell Wilson? How is he going to execute the offense? Do we see that same level carryover that they played at? And the other thing to me is we know George Pickens, unquestioned number one. Behind him, it seemed like Calvin Austin had a lot of steam this spring, and that was with Russell Wilson. I know Alan mentioned this, but it's been a better connection with Van Jefferson for Justin Fields than it has been with Calvin Austin. With Russell Wilson being the guy to get back out there, does that maybe help Calvin Austin pick back up his steam?
Yeah. I mean, Calvin had some good moments, I felt like, against the Texans. I mean, he had those 2 long catches on those, kind of sail routes. But I mean, those were
could have had that one from Kyle Allen in the end zone. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, those were kind of like manufactured touches. But I mean, like they even put him, like he was playing a little X receiver on the backside, 3-by-1s. He had a couple really nice rests where he was separating. He had a really nice whip route on one of those 3rd down plays as well. So, I mean, I saw some encouraging things. Yeah, that throw from Allen, I mean, it's just a layup that you got to hit. I do think that if Calvin just catches it cleanly the first time, I think it's still a touchdown, even though, like, I feel like Allen was almost like he was so open, he was trying to almost be perfect, where it's like, dude, you can punt this thing to him and it's gonna be a touchdown. There's no one even. Yeah, there's no one in the end zone.
Yeah.
Almost never in the NFL do I say I could have done that, but I could have thrown that one. Like that.
Maybe
I think you could have made that
basketball shot the ball,
like Dr. Pepper, college football, scholarship, chest pass.
Yeah.
All that would have worked.
Yeah.
Derrick, I mentioned this throughout the week, but a guy for me that I want to see in this game now for a couple reasons, even because I was looking at it as a bounce back for him, Beanie Bishop, because I didn't think he was very strong in that first preseason game. And now you see Grayland Arnold go down, the guy that was kind of pushing him for that spot. So to me, that's a guy that I'm circling and want to see a ton of here in game 2.
Is that Thomas Graham's music playing in the background? Like, are we getting Latrobe's sleeper? I mean, here's the deal. Like, just real quick on Graham, like he was around the ball consistently. Like the couple days that I was in Latrobe, he had an interception in the red zone and 7 shots. He dropped another one on the first day that I was there from Kyle Allen that he should have had. And then like even in like I thought in one-on-ones, like he was holding his own too. So we'll kind of see what that looks like. I mean, he only played like I think 8 snaps, but he was definitely a sleeper for me to watch on Saturday night for sure. But in terms of Bishop, like I think just based on the phrasing and like, he had a pick 6 when I was there. I think that Bishop has a chance to be a contributor on this defense. It does scare me, like when you kind of take a couple steps back and remove yourself in the situation that the Steelers are about to head into week 1 of the season, potentially, with your nickel corner being an undrafted free agent, like as the undisputed, at this point, really, he is like the undisputed starter. And then Cam Sutton, who is not eligible to play the first half of the season. Like that's kind of scary to me when you think about the fact that even the Steelers, who play more base defense than pretty much anyone else, this guy's going to be on the field 67, 68% of the snaps. I mean, bare minimum. And everybody's just like, oh, it's not, we need to talk about receivers, which is another valid concern. But I don't know. It does scare me a little bit. But yeah, Bishop, I wasn't overly like down necessarily on his performance, but he didn't do anything that necessarily wowed me either. But yeah, that's a good shout for you for sure.
And talking about Beanie though, and the Cam Sutton suspension, they have a bunch of heavy 11 personnel teams in the early part of this schedule. Indianapolis, Washington, and the Jets. The Giants run on 11. The Raiders run a lot of 11. Like they have a lot of heavy 11 personnel teams early. So like it would be different if it was the other way. Like, yeah, how often do you use your lightweight little slot corner against the Cleveland Browns? Like almost never. Like that's fine, but those teams don't come until the second part of the schedule.
I was asked if the answer to that worry would be Deshaun Elliott in the slot and, seeing DeMonte KZ back with Minka. Like,
Sure.
would that maybe go ahead?
Yeah, no, I sorry to cut you off, but no, I mean, yeah, that's definitely an option. You can mix and match. You can use like the big nickel. I don't necessarily think, I mean, my phrasing there was probably poor. Like, I don't necessarily think that Beanie has to play 68, 70% of those snaps, even if you're in nickel. You can supplement that with Elliott and things like that. A little bit of my worry is though, like, is from a talent perspective, is KZ enough of an upgrade if you're going to play him instead of Beanie Bishop? Because I think like it looks like to me,
Ryan Watts is going to be the guy in
Yeah.
short order here anyway. So,
but it looks like to me that like when they want to get KZ on the field, that he's probably going to be like in those 3 safety sets, he's probably going to be the center fielder. So then you get into like Steelers Nation's like constant complaints about why is Mika not in the center field? Like, why is he not in the post? Like they're moving him around too much, yada, yada, yada. So I think that's a whole different kind of discussion that has a lot of layers to it. But yeah, I mean, it's absolutely something that should be a big talking point. A lot of fans like definitely keep your eyes on Beanie Bishop, because I mean, he's going to play probably a big role for this defense early on.
Yeah, absolutely. Derek, any other? I know I just mentioned Ryan Watson there. What did you see from him? Because we didn't really have a conversation in terms of wrapping up the first preseason game and now previewing the second one here. But Ryan Watts, I want to throw into this conversation. And also, I feel like I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up our boy Cory Trice getting his first game action last week.
Yeah, I mean, as far as Watts, man, I think the thing that I liked the most was just 2 or 3 really strong form tackles. As like elementary and nerdy as that sounds, like that was like one of the very, very most promising things that I saw on his film, his final year at Texas. Super sound tackler. I think like his missed tackle rate was under 5%, which is absolutely outstanding for a corner. Of course, getting live tackling against, real NFL players is a little bit different, but I think he had 2 or 3 really nice sticks. So, I mean, encouraging from him. Want to see, like, can he potentially carve out like a downbacker spot on this defense? We'll see. But as far as Cory, man, like just getting Cory Trice on the field is just great for me. Like seeing 27 out there, being fully healthy and stuff. And it sounds like he worked with the ones a lot this week with Dante Jackson working through an undisclosed injury. We'll see. I mean, he could potentially start tomorrow night, right? Like Dante played. Dante practiced, I think, one day this week, right, Alan?
Just Indy and 7 on. Didn't do any teams.
Okay.
So
no,
I'd call him like
team.
questionable. We don't get official injury statuses, but I'd call Dante Jackson pretty questionable.
Yeah. So I mean, how cool would that be to see like Trice and Porter as like number 1 corners against Buffalo? Like that would be really cool for me, and definitely something that I'll be keeping an eye on. But like my main takeaway from Trice was like, I know he had that one really nice tackle on the flat, but just getting to see him on the field, knowing all the adversity that he's been through over the years is it's a really cool moment. And I'm still pretty bullish on the skill set, man. Just please stay healthy.
Yeah, absolutely. Was there anything, whether it's a player individually or just like anything about the team that you want to see now?
Yeah, not trying to like hijack your all's podcast or anything, but I do want to see them. I think we need to see Broderick Jones. Like, I need to know like what percent is he playing at right now? Alan, I know you've had a conversation with him personally, and like he's told you that, the elbow issue is an issue.
It's not the elbow issue, it's the brace that he's got to wear. He says he really has limited mobility in one of his arms, where he can't really do a one-handed punch right now, like with that right arm in the brace. And so he's pretty limited in what he can do. He's not hurt. They just want him to keep this brace on it for an amount of time. He thinks he'll have it off by the opener. So yeah, that's definitely like holding him back right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's like necessary context that I feel like a lot of Steelers fans need from, people in the building like Alan. But I'll just say, like, I was not very impressed with what I saw. I thought Friday night was pretty ugly for both tackles. I mean, Fautanu, he's a rookie getting his first action. Oh, well. He didn't play extremely well. I think better days are definitely ahead as soon as he gets healthy. But Broderick, man, like, they really need him to be like, even if you say he's still a little bit of a project in pass pro, which is obvious at this point, he needs to be at bare minimum like above average to good run blocker. And I thought in the run game he really struggled on Friday. Now, how much of that is the arm or the elbow? Like, I can't really answer that, but I would like to see him look a little bit more comfortable in the offense. And then kind of just like Smitty, what you were saying earlier, I thought that Arthur Smith called a really good game in the first half. I thought if not for like them getting in their own way, the QC exchanges being a disaster, he did a lot of good things. I mean, it was very, very vanilla in certain spots. I mean, they ran the same play 5 times. They ran 5 different sail concepts throughout the game, so it was very vanilla. But like I thought the base stuff looked really good.
I mean, how about going along with that same thing? Zach Frazier going to have an elevated
also looked
role
very,
here.
very good.
Yeah,
very good.
Going to have a larger role, you would think, here in the second preseason game. So I think that's just the offensive line as a whole. Excited to see them go against this Buffalo team.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned about Broderick. Yeah, I saw somebody put out the take that, he's still just kind of relying on the natural tools. Like, you haven't necessarily seen that technical development take place yet. But Derrick, when going back to when they drafted him, like, I mean, how much did we say, like, don't expect this guy to be, he's going to be frustrating very early in his career. And it might not be until year 3 that you see a polished player, which is the exact opposite of how we felt about Troy Fautanu.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, like that can all still be the case. I think that's kind of what I was saying about, like, you kind of need him to be this above average to good run blocker, because if he's not, you really can't supplement some of the worries in pass pro. Like, he can't be a poor pass blocker and a average to below average run blocker. Like, you just can't. Like, that can potentially like torpedo an offensive line. Now, I definitely don't anticipate that being the case. Like, I think he's still going to be a good asset in the run game, like we saw last year, albeit in a more of a gap scheme as opposed to like this zone heavy scheme that we're going to see under Arthur Smith. But that's just my thing. Is like, it was just one of those eye-opening performances where it was like, whoa, I know he's hurt, but this should look a little bit differently, I feel like, year 2 in the preseason, especially because, like, I mean, he played into the second half because of the injuries and stuff. So I don't know. I want a boring Saturday night from Broderick Jones. Like, it doesn't have to be necessarily good. I just don't like another bad performance would kind of put me a little bit on edge as we head into week 1, knowing that this offensive line kind of has to be the catalyst for how this offense is going to go.
This is a really good Buffalo front too. I think that's the other part of this. You get some really and a bunch of varieties of types of pass rushers, between like Epinesa and Russo and Von Miller, and I don't know if Von's going to play, but like I think like there's a challenge there that not that like going against TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith isn't challenging, but just interested to see how they handle it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Alan, I have a question for you. Is like, as we sit here this calendar part of the year, now that we go into the second preseason game, like, I know that you do projections for the 53-man roster. Like, how much of that work do you think is done from the Steelers end? Like, how many jobs at this point do you think are still up for grabs? Like, how many people are still fighting for spots? Or do you think that at this point it's probably like they have a pretty good idea?
You probably got about 47 guys that can start to make plans for their life and not really worry about what happens on cut down day. There's probably about 6 spots that are like realistically in question at this point. And it's not like you can say, like, sometimes you can, right? The 10th offensive lineman, right? Like, that's one of them. Like, whoever that, like, that's uncomfortable. There's a couple of guys in that conversation. Because it could be a trade of a veteran, or it could be just that the last guy gets cut, whatever. But, we know 3 quarterbacks, 3 running backs, probably 3 tight ends. We got 8, maybe 7 offensive linemen that are like pure locks, right? I think the top 7 defensive linemen are in. I think 3 of the top 4 outside linebackers are in. I think 4 inside linebackers are in. The top 8 defensive backs are in. 3 special. I mean, there's relatively little like drama about like where those last few roster spots are coming from. Everybody knows where they are.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's good to know. That's been on my mind for a while, just like trying to figure out when, they kind of check these boxes, because you don't have like the cut down days like you used to. So I just kind of wonder maybe how that process has changed internally over the years. Derrick, Alan and I have felt the same way. We've had a conversation about, obviously we've spent so much time talking about the receivers, but looking at that specific position. How do you think that that's going to shake out on the 53?
Man, it's tough, right? Like I think like Alan said, like the first 4 receivers locks in my opinion. I mean, GP, Van Jefferson, those are probably gonna be your starters, and 12 personnel. When they go 11, it's probably gonna be some form of those two. I guess an early season will probably be Calvin Austin, and then Roman Wilson is kind of like your 4th guy. I think as the season progresses and as he, gets worked back into the offense, because I mean, he's missed a lot of time too. Like rookies that don't participate in training camp or the preseason, they're just behind the 8 ball. It's difficult to really get them to produce really anything during the rookie season is if they're not contributors at this stage of the game. I think, the situation is probably going to dictate that the Steelers have to get Roman Wilson playing time because like they don't have anyone else that should probably prohibit that. But then like the wide receiver 5 spot's probably an interesting one. I guess if I had to guess, I'm curious on your all's thoughts. I think Scotty Miller probably is the leader in the clubhouse for that spot. I don't particularly feel dandy about that or the entire construction of the room, if I'm being honest, but like I would probably prefer them to go out and look at some of these other teams and try to see if they could get maybe, even if it's not, it's probably not going to be an Aiyuk trade, even if it's not something crazy, some trade or anything like that, like go barrel hunting for some of these rosters. Like look at the Texans, look at the Packers, try to get somebody else.
Jahan Dotson just
rumored
to be available today.
Yeah. Do we want to talk about the Jahan Dotson thing?
Yeah, let's do it.
What's the deal? Like, I'm just curious because I've heard this like kind of off in the wind. What's the deal with Jahan Dotson? Like, do the Commanders just not want him? I know they drafted Luke McCaffrey. They have Terry McLaurin. They have De'Ami Brown. Like, is he not better than those guys?
I have a friend that covers the team, and they said they feel internally like he's not a fit for the direction that they're trying to build. Like, okay, if Adam Peters was the GM, they wouldn't have drafted a Jahan Dotson type under him. He's trying to go the same route as like the San Francisco. Like he comes from San Francisco, their GM. So these people that are trying to push for him to be part of a package for Brandon Aiyuk, hilarious because that wouldn't happen. They're not looking for that type of receiver. So I don't know. I kind of get on board whether it's a trade. They're not going to release him, but I think it's very possible he's traded.
So that's a good. I feel like that's a good kind of segue to the rest of this conversation, right? Like, is Dotson the archetype of player that the Steelers will or should be looking for? Like, I mean, he's a smaller guy. He plays kind of inside outside versatile, but like they already have a bunch of smaller receivers. I think ideally what I would perfectly in a perfect world like to see is somebody that's like a little bit bigger of a body, somebody that brought you more in the run game, mainly because I still have concerns about Van Jefferson's ability with what this scheme kind of asked that player to do. That being said, I think that Dotson was a day 2 I think I had like an early 3rd round grade on him in the draft. So I was a little bit lower than consensus, but look, beggars can't be choosers. I feel like the Steelers are pretty desperate for talent right now. Anyone that can get open, like I'm just curious on your all's thoughts on like if he would be somebody that you would look at.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting because I think he's a pretty good player, and I think he's better than he's been on the field in Washington. I also think he's just a horrible fit for like this offense. He's just an awful run blocker. I mean, he's really bad. And that's like the thing that stands out to me. I could deal with him being smaller if that wasn't, I mean, blocking is about more than just size, right? But like, man, that's tough. And then I don't know. I think it is just an awkward fit. It like doesn't like, does that really take a lot of pressure off George Pickens? Like, I don't know. I guess in some ways. I'll say this. I think he's better. It's better than going into the season with Scotty Miller. Like, I think that's pretty clear. It's just an awkward fit. I think that's a good way to put it. I've also heard like some character concern, like not like anything like super bad, but like I think there's been some like attitude. Maybe attitude would be a better way to say it. Issues in DC as well. Now that was a mess of a franchise, and maybe it still is, but. Anytime that comes up, it's probably worth noting.
I think with what like Scotty Miller already kind of replicates a lot of Calvin Austin and Roman Wilson, but like him just being better than the other guys is why we were giving him that 5th nod. So yeah, they probably would be better suited to go out and find somebody else that can also contribute and run blocking, play on the outside. For me, I just think like you bring him in, he's at worst your third best pass catcher behind obviously GP and Pat. So, I mean, I guess if you want to include the running back, Jalen Warren's pretty damn good too. But I think that he can contribute more as a receiver than literally anybody else in that room, not named GP right now. So I would still do it, but I will concede that I don't think it's the best scheme fit.
Yeah. So this is just really interesting. So like one of the people that I really respect their opinion, particularly on receivers, and we typically do see eye to eye, but Dotson isn't one of those guys that we see eye to eye on. It's Matt Harmon from Yahoo. He does perception. He does really detailed work, and I really respect his opinion, even if I don't always, see a player the same way. He has always loved Jahan Dotson, but I was just like looking at his profile just from like last year. I know the production has been underwhelming for him, but like we've talked about a lot this summer, is like receiver production matters a lot on like quarterback play, and they have not had very good quarterback play over Terry McLaurin's entire career, much less since they've drafted Jahan Dotson. But just looking at like his route success rate and percentiles against different type of coverages, Matt has him in the 63rd percentile against man, 56th against zone, 68th against press. Those are significantly better than Matt's profile on Roman Wilson coming out of college. Obviously, we don't have enough of a sample size probably for even to do Calvin Austin, but I do agree with what you're saying. I think like if we're just comparing receivers, like, hey, can this guy go get open against quality NFL cornerbacks? Like he would definitely be their third best pass catcher. But I know it's boring, but like I do think that the run blocking thing does matter, and it matters in this scheme more than most. So it's boring to talk about. People are probably like rolling their eyes listening to us talk about it so much this summer, but it matters, man. It really matters. So
the other thing I'll say about Dotson is that like usually guys that like he's not an incredible route runner. He doesn't get like open on his own all that much. He gets a lot of free releases. It's not like he's like cooking like man coverage constantly. But he doesn't have great hands, and he doesn't have great yak either. Like usually you want those guys to have at least one of those two things. We're like, okay, if we've got to scheme you open, either we want you to be super reliable so that we can use those plays on third down and move the chains and keep our offense on the field, or we want you, okay, we have to scheme you open so at least when you catch it, you can run and go for a long way. And he doesn't really seem to do either of those things. I think that's part of the reason why it's just like, I don't really know how, like he's an offensive coordinator. I think he's just he's like that tool that like looked good in the store, but then you get it home and you find out you never really use it. Like it just doesn't apply to any situation you end up being in.
Yeah, no, I definitely, to kind of put a bow on this. I am intrigued by Dotson. So like, I'm probably going to spend my early portion Saturday before the game tomorrow, just like combing through some of his games, just because I just want to see, like I said, that's why I asked you guys, because I haven't really paid a ton of attention to him recently. Just curious on like where the messaging and like what the deal is. I want to see what it looks like on film. So hopefully maybe I'll have some stuff to report back on the site or something like that here in the next couple of days. I'd like to do that.
Speaking of the site, Alan, you did a mailbag, and this is the last thing that I want to bring up. Somebody brought up the uniforms, and I actually see quite a few people on Steelers Twitter nowadays calling for the team to revamp or get new uniforms overall. And I think that's an interesting conversation, one that we haven't really discussed on here.
Yeah. My general take on uniforms is don't change them. I think the Steelers have great uniforms. And I actually like I like having the block numbers be a once a year special thing that you tie in with some piece of the team's history, whether it's celebrating a certain team or a play or a game or something in the past. I think that's really cool. I've never been a huge fan of their current color rush jerseys, though. I think they're just okay. I wouldn't mind seeing them try something different in that space, but I wouldn't be touching the regular uniforms anytime soon.
I want an addition to the uniforms, and that is an away version of the blocks coming back.
There you go.
That is what I would do. I would bring those back. I agree with you. I feel like the block numbers feel more important because they are only broken out like once a year, and I kind of like that about them.
Bring back the painted end zones too. Like do it late in the year. You can paint the end zones. Bring back the block. No, it's like special. Like I like it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like when Notre Dame wears green. Like I don't know. It's cool. I always thought that was cool.
I like the current color rush, but I am like that is the one that I feel like you could play around with and see if there is something that pops more. Derek, what do you think?
I have really strong feelings about the jersey. I have very, very strong feelings. In order to keep this a PG-friendly podcast, do not touch my jerseys. Don't touch them. Don't update the jerseys. All the stuff
you don't want an away block back.
I'm fine. Those are stuff you've done before. I'm literally telling you that I think. I don't know how many jersey like revamps have we seen over the past decade between like just across the NFL. Some of these teams have rebranded their jerseys like 2 or 3 times already. None of them have been
so many misses this offseason alone.
None of them have been good. I mean like the success rate on this thing is like less than 5%. Don't touch the Steelers jerseys. It's an iconic look. It's one of the best like helmet jersey combos, in my opinion, in all of sports. And obviously I'm a little bit biased there, but don't touch the jerseys, man. Some of these concepts I see on Twitter that y'all are drawing on like Microsoft Paint or whatever, like just horrific.
You know what drives me nuts are the jerseys that like were created for the fans and stuff that the team has never worn. Like the like gold as the base color with the black numbers, those ones.
Yeah.
Oh,
I would not hate a gold as the base color rush jersey. Like invert their current color rush jersey. I'd be okay with that.
But it's the jersey that I'm talking about though. Like it's not even that gold. Like
the one they sell at Kmart. Yeah.
It's bad. It's bad. And people are like, oh, that should be the color rush.
I would be down with a gold jersey. I would be okay with that.
I would need to see.
The Steelers wanted when they first came out with alternate uniforms way back in the 90s. The Steelers wanted to make a gold alternate, but the reason they wanted to do it was they wanted to wear it on the road. Because like when they would go south, like the outdoor southern teams would make them wear black in like Miami and Tampa in September, and they wanted a lighter colored uniform that they could wear on the road. But the NFL said, no, you can only wear alternates at home back then. So then they shelved it and they never brought it back. I think that's a decent idea.
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Maybe get somebody that's not just using Microsoft Paint to come up with a concept for me that I can look at and we'll go from there.
You can exclude me from any like proposals.
Just for the color.
Everybody send Derek your your personal Steelers uniform rebrand at Steelers_DB. He wants to see them all, every single one. Whatever your kindergartner drew with the crayon box, whatever you got on MS Paint, your one nephew that knows how to use Photoshop, whatever he came up with. Let's go. Send it all to Derek.
Auto mute button.
Yeah, I'm sure he's pumped about that. Derek, Alan just told the people where they could find you on Twitter, but obviously you got the YouTube stuff going on as well. Is that this exact? There's no underscore though.
There is still technically. I don't know.
Wait. Why do you have an underscore on YouTube? Do you have to?
I wanted to keep I wanted to keep it uniform across the board. I've actually been thinking about just dropping it, but yeah, Steelers_DB, Twitter, YouTube. I don't know. It just flows easier. It's easier for me to tell people where they can find me. But yeah, I got a lot of stuff coming. 2 film rooms up on the YouTube channel, and then I'm going to be writing something on kind of a deeper dive on Zach Frazier, just kind of my thoughts on him as we head into the regular season for SteelersNow.com. So be sure to check that out as well.
Just like everybody else, I'm very much looking forward to that. Alan, tell the people where they can find you.
Saunders_PGH on X, Instagram, and TikTok. PGH Steelers Now, SteelersNow.com. Flash sale today and tomorrow. That's it. It's over after that. $10 for an entire year of the best stuff for me, Derek, the whole rest of the team at SteelersNow.com, and no ads, which I will tell you is the greatest thing in the world. Nobody likes ads. Just get rid of them for $10. Why not?
$10 for an entire year. What does that equal out to? You know what? Let's find out right now what you're paying per day for this.
Per day.
Per day, it's like a nickel.
2 cents? Does that sound right?
2 cents? Yeah, about that. Yeah.
2.7 cents, something like that. There you go.
For 2
Sounds like a great
pennies.
deal.
2 pennies.
a day. 2 pennies.
If you are listening somewhere else, be sure to leave us a 5-star review and subscribe over there as well. Follow us on TikTok, Steelers Afternoon Drive. Find me everywhere, Zachary Smith, PGH. For Alan Saunders, for Derrick Bell, and myself, thanks for jumping in and taking another ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive.